Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dennis Hughes, the president of the Cascade chapter of ASSP, and welcome to our May 2021 meeting. And there we go. So, quick update for some chapter business, and we have a fantastic presentation today to share with everybody. So thanks for making the time for being here. I know everybody's wicked busy, and it's nice to have this time to come together with other safety folks. So really glad that you made it here. So general housekeeping stuff that we talked about before, sticking with virtual meetings for now. In light of the recent announcements, there's no discussion within ASSP to make any changes that I've heard of as of yet. Hardship memberships are still available. So if you know of someone that has encountered struggles in their employment during the pandemic time, hardship memberships are available. So if it's a new person that's new into safety or someone else that had an issue where their employment changed, it's still an option. There's some information on how to do that through the ASSP help page. You can message me directly. I'm glad to help you as well. There's a few new recent job postings on the webpage, so that's always exciting to see. And just a reminder that there's free courses. And if we could ask everybody that's not talking to mute, that would be cool. Chapter business, so officer elections. So this is due by the end of May. So here we are, close to the end of May. So obviously it's time to take care of these things now. Officer positions are held from July 1st to June 30th. And we've got a couple positions that are in succession. So our president position, Jim would move into that. We'll still do a verbal vote. So for a lot of these, what our bylaws say is if we don't have another person that is running, that we can do a verbal vote. And seeing as though we have a number of folks today and our deadline is the end of May, rather than trying to mail out some type of ballot system and then keeping track of that, I was thinking we could just do a verbal vote today for our positions that don't have more than one person listed. Any objection to going through that way? Bunch of head shaking. Okay, good stuff. All right, so let's see. For our elected folks, I'll just read them all off here in case someone is on the telephone and can't see. For president, we have Mr. Jim Nusser. Vice president is currently open. Secretary is Twyla Galloway. Treasurer, David Lindeland. And delegate to the society and delegates at large, we did not have someone selected those. We had, I know Christy said you were interested in those. I wanted to leave them open in case someone wanted to express any interest and be a little bit more involved today. And if so, if you want to throw your mitt up or just unmute and say something now, then feel free. The quick review for someone that may not be as familiar. The delegate to the society, it's the individual within our chapter that communicates and votes with the ASSP larger organization. And the delegate at large, if we had like our section or student group, that would be the person that would kind of liaison between those different areas, but it's also kind of the other duties as assigned position within the chapter is what the bylaws say. So if you're thinking, hey, I kind of want to help out, not really sure, it's a nice place to maybe just, assisting in whatever things come up. And there's really not a whole lot of curveballs that come our way within the society. So I was going to make a pause for a second in case anyone else had anything else to offer or discuss before we started a verbal vote for the positions listed. Okay, let's get it on. We only have one position, and seeing as though the awkwardness of muting and unmuting, I haven't done this before, obviously. So do we want to just say all of these at once, or does anyone feel the need to do them individually? All at once?
All at once.
Lots more head nods. Okay, great. I know I asked a two-way question. No one wants to really unmute and make it a big collision of words. So here we go. Verbal vote. So get your mute buttons ready. And all those in favor of electing the listed positions and the previously mentioned positions and individuals, say aye.
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 Raising your hands. Great. See you there, Thomas. All right. Anyone opposed? Okay. That's it. It's official. That's our officially elected officers for the next chapter year. Exciting stuff. Again, that'll take over in July 1st. So this isn't the only position. So if you were thinking, man, I really felt like I wanted to do something, but this was my chance and now I blew it for a year, you didn't, because these are just the elected positions, and there's also special election criteria. And additionally, there's appointed positions. So we've got a few positions that can just be appointed, and these can be appointed by the president, sometimes with the approval of the executive officers, the chapter officers as well. So we've got a few options here, and some of these are already, we got folks that have been doing these for a little while already. And I did get interest from a number of folks, and as true to form, I sent that email off probably an hour-ish before the meeting to get back to you. So apologies for the delay there, but we did get that information out, and there's a little bit of information as far as what each position does, and I'm trying not to go too long. I want to make sure Evan has enough time to talk today, so I'll try not to drag too much. But some of these positions, most of them, the folks that have already been doing them are willing to shadow or share or be there with you. If you're saying, hey, I kind of want to do it, but I'm not too sure yet, then just throw your hand up, and then it can be a shared responsibility. Or if it turns out you want to try something else, it's perfectly fine. Just being more involved, being active in the chapter, it's a great benefit for everybody, and we always learn something. And we have such a collaborative group that works with one another. Everyone's really open to sharing. It's like a big old safety hug. So don't be shy about wanting to join in there. All right, next up, we've got our biennial occupational safety and health conference planning. So we talked about this at our executive meeting just last Thursday, and I sent an initial email out to our OSHA counterpart that helps us navigate these. Just fantastic. Cheryl is the person that really helps keep us all oriented and pulls this thing together fantastically. Sent a message inquiring what other entities or other chapters or organizations are planning for the 2022 March-ish time, so that we can be aligned with whatever the expectation is. And so I'll report back at our next chapter executive or officer meeting what that next status is. So if you really like planning and you're a fantastic planner, you've got tons of good ideas, then maybe the conference chair is a position that you'd like to share in as well. So more to come on that. We have to get cracking on that. It's really important. We want to have a successful conference. So next up, that's all the business I had. One other item, and I know it's going a little bit longer, is the Chamber of Commerce that we wanted to, did we want to discuss that here at our chapter meeting, or was that something that we were going to put together a little bit more before we brought it up?
I think we're going to do a little bit more exploration on opportunities for collaboration with the Eugene and Springfield Chamber to find out how we can network with other safety professionals and help keep workers safe. So we should have more information hopefully at the next meeting.
Great. So just sneaking behind the curtain there, letting everybody know it's one option that we're looking at, so that maybe it's not a total surprise whenever you see it. There's effort to try and partner with other entities within the community as well. All right, otherwise there's the date for our next meeting, and I will turn it over. Christy, you're introducing our speaker today. Super. Okay.
Yes, excellent. And before we leave the next meeting date, June 15th, we have Kimber Howard from Oregon State University, who is a OSU intern in the Masters of Public Health program, and she'll be presenting at the June 15th meeting. So it's a great opportunity to learn about their projects, as well as to think about how you might help a young safety professional get some on-the-job experience and benefit your organization. So I encourage you to come and invite your friends. All right. So today's presentation is on behavior-based Behavior-Based Safety Evolved. Evan Church from Danone North America, is our presenter today. He's a certified safety professional and a safety management specialist with a master's degree in safety from Marshall University and a bachelor's in science and education from the University of Idaho. With 15 years of experience in various health and safety roles with the federal service, metals and mining, and manufacturing industries. So Evan will talk to us today about how behavior-based safety programs work, what the pitfalls and lessons learned are, and we'll discuss how program modifications can improve worker safety and health, increase engagement, and drive worker empowerment. So Evan, thank you for presenting for us today.
All right, Christy, did you get the presentation? Because I can try to share.
I have not gotten it yet, so if you want to try, I will try to nudge it just in case.
All right. Let's see. I think for me it was either present or it was bad microphone.
Your microphone sounds good at the moment, just a tiny bit of reverb. And I do have your presentation, so if you'd like me to present it.
Yeah, let's do that because I don't think I can. I don't think I can get it into PowerPoint mode.
Okay, let's see if I can do this.
He's having bandwidth challenges, so.
Can you see my screen?
I can see you.
I saw your screen and
sorry.
it disappeared.
Can you see it now? No?
No, just you.
Okay, we're gonna try it one more time.
I'm not sure what you did. My arrow's up like it's asking me to share.
That's weird.
Try to take it back if you can.
How about now?
There
Yeah,
you are.
it's loading. Yep.
Ta-da!
All right.
Excellent.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Christy.
Yep, you just tell me when you want me to advance it.
All right. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. So today we're going to talk about some behavior-based safety stuff and just kind of how maybe how I've implemented a BBS program, and also I'm going to talk about kind of the trials and tribulations of implementing a program like this, and just kind of how I've evolved our program. So, you know, a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not an expert on this, but what I hope to do is, if folks on the call have never heard of this, hopefully you'll learn something. If you have a program and you're implementing it and you're trying to improve it, hopefully you learn something. And if you consider yourself an expert and this is a waste of your time, get a hold of me because I got some questions for you. So what we're gonna talk about, I'll just talk about some program basics, some pitfalls that I've experienced, some lessons learned, some results, and then maybe just a little kick around discussion at the end, just to maybe answer any questions, have some discussion. So next slide, please, Christy. So program basics. When it comes down to behavior-based safety, it's a method to decrease risk. You know, it is a safety program. It's something that's been around for about 30 years. But what we want to do with the program is ultimately we want to keep people safe. I mean, that's kind of the goal of the program. So anytime you implement a safety program like this, Christy, I think we lost the presentation, but
we did.
Here we
I
are.
was also trying to admit people in the lobby, so I had a little problem.
Oh,
I'll catch the admitting for now.
Am I back?
yeah.
Okay, I've lost my controls.
Uh-oh.
I got it. There we go. So sorry.
Oh, that's fine. All right. So when we talk about program basics, before you start any safety program, sometimes as safety professionals, we like to jump into something real quick, and sometimes we do that without setting goals. So if you're going to implement a program like this, what do you hope to achieve out of it? BBS it's no different. I mean, we implement a BBS program to, influence behavior, get people to do the right thing when the situation, calls for choice. So it also decreases risk through behavior management. The behavior management is an assessment of what people do, and with the BBS program, we assess what they do, we intervene, and then we provide feedback. We cycle through this until our undesired behaviors are discontinued. So it's kind of, if you guys are in the CI game a little bit, it's kind of a plan, do, check, act cycle. We go out, we see what the employees are doing. If they're doing something undesirable, we intervene, we let them know, we give them the feedback, and then we come back and check again. And so that's kind of the basic premise of a BBS program. We could probably talk for another couple hours and get into really specific details, but I think all in all, that's kind of the 2-minute spiel on what the basics of a BBS program are. Next slide, please. So, but when you implement a program like this, there are some pitfalls. So when I think back to some of the things I implemented before at not only my current job, but different positions. But when you do an observation, generally it's people that are trained in giving up and performing observations, performing the intervention, and delivering the feedback, that they'll go out and observe an employee doing their work. One of the pitfalls of that is it becomes a prescribed activity. And in my experience with safety, if safety becomes prescribed and employees don't really understand the value, they're going to develop sort of an apathy toward it. Oh yeah, I got to do this. I got to check these boxes. And that can really compromise the value of the program that you're really trying to create. The next pitfall is we ignore the behavioral context. So, BBS is sometimes concerned only with what the employee is doing, not necessarily why they're doing it. I mean, for example, if somebody's running around on the roof without fall protection, yeah, that's unsafe. That's a behavior that needs to be corrected. But if you ask why they're doing it, it's because, well, they weren't provided with any fall protection and there's nothing to tie off to anyway. So, sometimes there might be a little bit of a pitfall there when we fail to understand why somebody's doing something that might be undesirable. The next pitfall is weaponization. So, had a couple months ago, we had a supervisor at my facility. They were going through our BBS observation cards, and they were picking out the things that employees were doing wrong, and they were getting written up for it. That was a huge pitfall, because what that did is it ultimately just decreased reporting. Employees didn't want to do it anymore. They didn't want to get in trouble themselves, and they didn't want their coworkers to get in trouble. And what really happened with the weaponization is it drove those actions underground. So, safety stuff, it really wasn't being communicated. It was kind of in a blind spot. It really drove risk outside of the eye. So, when risk lies in wait, eventually an employee is going to find it. And one of the pitfalls of our program and how we rolled it out initially was, we were incentivizing people to shut up. Unfortunately, that's kind of how it went down. So let's go to the next slide, Christy, and I'll talk about some of the lessons learned and kind of how we recovered from that. So lessons learned, we reinvented the program. So we all know it as behavior-based safety. There was a negative connotation with the word behavior. So something as simple as that actually created a negativity around the program. Behavior is something you work into children. Sometimes we think our coworkers are children, but in most cases they're adults. So we wanted to reinvent the name of the program. So we called it, instead of behavior-based safety, we now call it a safety engagement conversation. And the idea behind this is it's not prescribed. It's not something that you're assigned to go do. It's something that you're going to act on real time. So our program now and what the way we try to run our program now and just for context of that, I'm the safety manager at a pretty fast-paced manufacturing environment, and we really don't have time to prescribe behavior-based safety observations. But what we do have time to do is intervene the moment we see something good or bad happening. The next thing is any documented conversations. We trend that stuff and we track and trend it. It goes into a big spreadsheet. That spreadsheet is reviewed by the safety committee monthly, and the safety committee picks out the trends and they determine what our focus areas are going forward. The next thing is we now have a no blame rule for our safety engagement conversations. Nobody gets in trouble when we have a safety conversation. The only time somebody gets in trouble is when it becomes or gets into that intentional negligent mode. And as safety professionals, we sometimes have to deal with those employees. We also realize that these are a tool to improve employee and business learning. So one conversation, it's going to drive at least 5 actions. So if I see something, for example, if somebody's not wearing their gloves and I tell them to put their gloves on before they grab something sharp, in my mind, I've done something safe. The coworker I talked to is now doing something safe. We're going to document it on a little piece of paper, or the safety engagement card. That's what we call them. And so that's the third action. Those cards are reviewed daily by the leads and supervisors. That's the fourth action. Then they're entered into a spreadsheet where they're reviewed again by the safety committee. So one conversation, it leads to 5 actions. And what this does is it really empowers the employees to watch out for each other. We create this culture and this mindset that our employees, they got to take care of each other. They're responsible for each other, and that's really powerful when it comes to safety and health. Is once they have that empowerment, the engagement follows. Okay, next slide. So some of the results. So what we've created here is we have better defense against risk. In a fast-paced manufacturing environment, we operate 24/7. We're cranking product out because all you do in a pandemic is eat dairy-free frozen dessert, I guess. But there's a lot of risk floating around here in our facility, and when our people are engaged and they're engaged with each other, our defense against risk increases. And with that, we have increased engagement, increased ownership. People have a personal responsibility to safety, and I think they have a personal responsibility to each other, and that's very powerful. Next thing, like I said, increased empowerment. And then, there's also business benefits on the back end. We are a better business because our people talk to each other about safety. For example, if I look at the trend sheet and I have 30 conversations about somebody not wearing gloves, that goes a little deeper than just some individual not wearing gloves. It's do our people know that they're not supposed to wear gloves? Do they know things are sharp? Are we providing gloves that are worth wearing? as the business learns, we become a better business altogether, and that really improves our efficiencies. And and here the saying is, so goes safety, so goes the production and the efficiencies that come with that. So, next slide. So that's just kind of quick and dirty on behavior-based safety. Like I said, I'm not really an expert, but I've rolled out a program. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I think I've learned from a lot of those mistakes, and we've kind of turned things around through just little tweaks, little evolutions of the program, just to make sure that it, because ultimately, I mean, I'm the safety manager sitting in the chair. I'm not exposed to the risk for 48 hours a week. This is really an employee-driven program. And for us in the business, it's really improved things here. So I guess I just want to kind of go around. Does anybody have any questions or any topics we should maybe bring up around behavior-based safety? Anything burning?
Evan, can you hear me? This is Jim Johnson.
Yeah.
My live? Yeah. So what's the perception if somebody comes up to somebody and says, oh, you're not wearing gloves or your mask has slipped over your nose or something? What's the feeling? Do people feel slightly defensive, or does it engage them, or what's the emotional context for those kinds of conversations?
That's a really good question. So it all depends on how we react. So usually, if I'm the one that's initiating the conversation, part of our safety engagement conversation training is how we approach an unsafe thing, right? You don't run at somebody screaming and yelling. You kindly explain to them, either the why behind it. Hey, we got to put on gloves because that's sharp. But with that said, sometimes people do get defensive, and if there is a problem, or maybe two employees maybe get into an argument or something, then it kind of falls back on leadership to and get them in a room, get them talking, and just make sure that, hey, that the intention here is to look out for your safety. And if you're the conversation initiator or you're the receiver, nobody means ill will, but that's just kind of how we move forward. And we also reiterate, the no blame rule, because somebody tells you to put some gloves on, that doesn't mean they want to get you in trouble. That just means they're looking out for you.
I'll add on that in my workplace, we're encouraged to talk about safety issues and raise them for other people, but there's a lot of skill building that can sometimes be important, especially if you hear from one of your employees that they leave love notes that say things like park somewhere different, jerk. We have a coaching moment to teach them how to have a curious conversation instead of a judgmental conversation. So I think any of us in any role of leadership can help craft that. There is a question in the chat from Lance Hughes, so I'll read it for you, Evan. How many safety engagement cards are you getting monthly? Company size, and is this a leading indicator performing as desired? Is this leading indicator performing as desired?
Yeah, let me see if I can plot that up. Okay, got it. So getting monthly, we're probably around 250. We do have 200 employees about in our facility. So just to break that down a little further, the small number is 10 a day from all shifts. So if we're in single digits, that's usually me hollering at some leads or some supervisors to figure out why. And then, this is one of our main leading indicators. We know in our business, I actually contemplated throwing this graph up, but I'll just talk about it. But when our leading safety work drops off, specifically these safety engagement conversations, that's when our first aids and our recordables go up. Here at our business, we have some external things going on. We just went to 24/7. We're having a tough time hiring people, like a lot of businesses are. And in April, our safety engagement conversations fell off significantly. People are stretched thin. The people we do have are training new hires, and we had our first 2 recordables of the year in April. And so as a leading indicator, I mean, they're inversely related. One goes up, one goes down, and for our business, that's been the trend for 2 years. So it's a good question, Lance. Thanks.
Yeah, I just had one more quick question, Evan. When safety exists on a spectrum, events exist on a spectrum, and I just kind of wonder what's the trigger point, where you go from just reminding somebody of something casually as opposed to now making it a safety conversation. Where is that threshold crossed? How do you explain to people, at what point does it become just a little quick reminder, oh, we got an extension cord over here, you got to step over it, as opposed to, okay, now we're going to have a conversation that's going to lead to 5 actions. Where is that dividing line?
So with us, it really just has to do with what would be considered a safety conversation. So maybe let me know, Jim, if I'm messing up your question here, but as far as when we take action as leaders, if we're having the same conversations with employees all the time, then our leads and supervisors will know. They'll usually get me to intervene, and I'll kind of have a conversation myself with the employee. Usually, if it gets to my level, at that point, then it's a recurring problem for the employee, and they need to have a conversation with me. But what I tell our folks all the time, it's talk to each other about safety, because that's when we get into problems, is when not wearing your gloves gets to my level. So I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but
yeah, that was kind of it. Like I said, it just seems like it's kind of context driven, and so it would be tough to explain, or a challenge is to explain to the workforce, in what context are we doing this, and then at what point do we take a more formal approach. So tough question. I don't know if there's a good answer for it. So
yeah, and with us, it's almost case by case, right? I mean, if we're talking to the same employee about not wearing gloves, 10 times a shift, that's a problem. But if it's the same employee 10 times over, 2 or 3 months, okay, maybe not, right? But it also goes back to, there's typically other factors that go into that as well. What are the situations? Are they in a new job? Have we trained them appropriately? Like I said earlier, are the gloves, do they even fit, right? So, we have to take all that stuff and, look at it case by case when it comes into the, when it reaches that like formal enforcement, rule breaking, as opposed to safety conversations.
Evan, I'm interested in the shift, and I don't know if you were at the plant at the time, from to no blame, right? When you were doing these safety, and you must have been, because you were talking about everybody getting disciplined after they reviewed them. How did that culture change happen, and what were sort of the learning lessons along the way for that?
Well, it was kind of driven by the employees. So in late 2018, I think I said months in the presentation. I probably meant years, but I can't even. It doesn't even seem like I've been here for 2.5 years already. But we had a string of injuries, and it just seemed like basic safety 101 injuries, and I bring up the gloves is because two of them were cut related. And when we get into the investigation, I started talking to employees, and I'm like, hey, why aren't you talking about how come we're not having BBS conversations about wearing gloves or not wearing gloves? And the feedback was on the floor was, well, I would, but I don't want so and so to get written up, and they're my coworker, and I don't want to have that. I don't want to deal with that. And so it was really employee driven to go to the no blame. It was met with a little heartache because that wasn't the way we did business for the longest time. But we've kind of seen a 180. I think in late 2018 there was a string of injuries, and in 2019 we did really well. And I think that was really driven by this kind of like psychological safety aspect where employees they felt empowered and they felt safe to speak up. They didn't feel like their coworkers were going to get in trouble. And collectively and holistically, it really improved the culture.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other questions for Evan, or any stories you want to share about behavior-based safety in your workplace, or your exploration of behavior-based safety in your workplace? I have to tell you, Evan, I want to see your master spreadsheet, but I'm kind of a spreadsheet geek and I want to see the data.
we have some pretty good data, but I enter it all, so there's a lot of typos.
I guess question I have for you, Evan, related to the data, how does your management team use the data, as far as Lance commented about being a leading indicator? How have you seen the kind of the data that you've gotten be used by others in the organization besides yourself?
So for us, so we have little safety engagement cards. They're similar to a BBSO card that you might see. But when I talk about tracking and trending, in addition to safety engagement cards, we also look at first aids and we look at near hits, and we try to match those things up. But what we actually look for in the data is what isn't there. So, and what I mean by that, if we have first aids or we have near hits, let's say that's maybe it's mobile equipment related. So we have a bunch of pallet jacks, and we have a bunch of near hit incidents, or maybe somebody's foot got hit with a pallet jack or something like that. And then we look in the safety engagement conversation data, and nobody's talked about pallet jack safety in about 3 months. That's an indicator that we need to do some training immediately on pallet jack safety, because what people are talking about isn't matching up with what's really happening on the floor. And so that's that's the leadership level, and kind of how we drive next month's training, so to speak. And we make it flexible. And then our cards, we also change the cards routinely. Typically they have a focus area. Q1 was, for example, mobile equipment, and then Q2 is slips, trips, and falls. So we adapt and move pretty quickly based on those first aid reports and based on those near hit reports. Some people might call them near misses, but I can argue that for about 5 hours. But anyway, I hope I answered that question.
Thomas?
I was going to ask, do you guys do anything to reward positive behavior? Have any kind of encouragement or recognition?
Yeah, actually, I should have mentioned this in my presentation, but of all of our safety engagement cards, we're about 70% positive conversation versus, and positive meaning safe, and maybe about 30% negative as far as unsafe. And what we do is weekly, our supervisor, we have one supervisor that reviews the data, and he'll select one person on each shift that submitted the best quality card, you know, whatever that might be. Saw an employee lifting a pallet by themselves, told them it was unsafe, helped them move the pallet, something like that. And those we give them vending bucks every week, or maybe a $10 Starbucks gift card, something like that. So we do some recognition stuff like that.
Do you incentivize near hit reporting as well? That's always sort of a barrier for organizations. I imagine with your no blame culture, it's a little bit easier, but it feels like it needs a little bit more than that.
Yeah. So we have a two-pronged approach to leading safety work. Number one, the most important ones are safety engagement conversations, but also we report near hit events. We report first aids. We report damage incidents, and we also report safety defects, or identified hazards. Different businesses probably call them different things, but those are all the leading safety metrics that we track.
Thomas, did you have another question, or is your hand's just still up? All right. Any other questions or comments for Evan? All right, well, I'm going to take that as no more questions. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, Evan. It's not always easy to be vulnerable and share the areas where it wasn't an easy process, and we all learn from your learning. So thank you for sharing that with us. We so appreciate it. And I especially appreciate your stepping in for the May presentation on short notice. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad I can help. Hopefully somebody learned something.
We absolutely did. All right, Dennis, any last thoughts before we close the meeting?
Nothing for me, just another thanks to Evan for presenting today.
Awesome. I will also ask the members that if any of you have ideas for future presentations, if you have something you've done in your own workplace that you'd like to share with us, please, we'd love to learn from you. Please send us your suggestions, your ideas, your presentations, and we'll carry it forward. Thank you. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
I'm letting everyone leave.